The drone soared over the Scottish Highlands like a hawk tracing old bloodlines. Beneath the grey sky, perched atop a lonely cliff, stood the Castle Blackmere, a restored 14th century fortress, now dressed in fresh marble, imported vines, and glass panels that shimmered like wealth made visible. Helicopters rested on a backlit helipad. A black Rolls-Royce purred at the entrance like a beast waiting for its master. Inside, 300 guests whispered in tailored suits and designer gowns, their murmurs drowned by the echo of money. At the end of the stone aisle, under a cathedral arch bursting with white orchids and golden lilies, Adrian Cross stood still. His tuxedo was midnight blue, velvet lapels sharp enough to draw blood. A platinum watch peeked from under his sleeve, not ticking but glinting because time had long ago surrendered to him. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and like, spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. Adrian surveyed the hall like a CEO inspecting a new acquisition. He didn't believe in love. He believed in timing, optics, and asset elevation. And today, he looked like a man who'd won. The crowd turned. The violinist struck the first note. And down the aisle floated Aubrey Langston, champagne gold, silk hugging her frame, lips pursed like she knew how much envy she'd brewed in this room. Her veil shimmered with delicate crystals. Her heels clicked like clockwork through the silence. Adrian's eyes met hers. They weren't warm. They were approving, like a man nodding at his final choice. Behind him, 4 massive LED panels looped, a carefully curated montage. Adrian's charitable ventures, luxury real estate achievements, a few selected photos with world leaders, and finally, a shot of him and Aubrey smiling at a private beach in the Maldives. Carefully cropped to erase a face. The priest cleared his throat. Adrian reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a small black notebook. No traditional vows, he said smoothly, turning to the audience. This isn't a traditional story. The audience chuckled politely, unsure if that was humor or warning. I've built empires, reshaped cities, and redesigned my entire life from the ashes of betrayal. What I have with Aubrey isn't a chapter, it's the new book. This, he gestured around the castle, is the beginning of something real. Finally. There was applause, though light and awkward. Some guests exchanged glances but said nothing. Because no one wanted to be the one to ask, "Where is Nia Cross?" Adrian raised Aubrey's hand to his lips, kissed it like a promise, like a threat. The ring sparkled, a custom-cut canary diamond encased in fire-set rose gold, meant to be seen, meant to outshine everything that came before. Aubrey mouthed, "I love you." Adrian didn't reply. He turned slightly toward the live stream camera, the one broadcasting this wedding across multiple private channels. He straightened his shoulders and stared into the lens, eyes gleaming like cut glass. "This is my real life now," he said. Click. Somewhere a shutter snapped. Somewhere a screen refreshed. But in the very back row, just near the last marble pillar, a hotel server holding a tray froze mid-step. Her gaze wasn't on the bride. It wasn't on Adrian. It was locked on the open castle doors behind them, as if someone or something was about to walk through. But before she could speak, the violinist began again. The wedding marched on. The violin music from the castle echoed softly through a cracked laptop speaker, tinny and distorted. Across town, across reality, a woman sat on a worn couch, one arm wrapped around a sleeping baby, the other balancing the device on her lap. The live stream was pixelated but clear enough to see the castle, clear enough to see him. Her bare feet were planted on chipped wooden floors, surrounded by half-folded laundry and a maze of sippy cups. A little boy tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy. Snack." "Just a second, sweetie," she said without looking away. Her voice was calm, too calm. Her name was Nia Cross, and today was the wedding of her husband. The man standing at that altar, the man kissing another woman's hand like it meant salvation, still shared her bank accounts, still appeared on the birth certificate. Of every child crawling at her feet, still wore the ring she'd bought him with her first bonus check. He hadn't even changed the vows. Nia's lips barely moved. He didn't even change the damn vows. The baby in her arms stirred. She pulled the blanket tighter and whispered an apology that wasn't meant for him. The laptop screen flickered. Adrian's face filled the frame, cocky and polished. His voice cut through the feed. This isn't a traditional story. Nia laughed then, not loudly, not madly, just softly, bitterly, like someone watching a rerun of their worst heartbreak being marketed as romance. On the coffee table lay a crumpled court summons. Her name, Nia Clarice Cross, still legally bound. The divorce hadn't gone through. Technically, she was still Mrs. Adrian Cross. But what was marriage when betrayal had a bigger budget? Flashback. 6 years ago, a rainy strip mall. Adrian stood beside a glass storefront, its sign half hung, wires exposed. She held the drill, he held the lease. We'll call it Cross Point, he said, eyes lit with the hunger of a man trying to outrun his father's shadow. She smiled. Too sterile. Let's call it Nia's. Everyone will trust a woman's name more. That was the first decision she made for his empire. She'd go on to make hundreds more. Branding, budgeting, interior, color schemes, PR crisis plans. She built it with him, not as a co-pilot, but as the compass. Then Aubrey showed up. First as a bridesmaid, then as a babysitter, then as a co-consultant. Nia should have known. But love has a way of editing the truth. Now, here she was, sitting in a house she once designed for their forever, alone, forgotten, erased, all while Aubrey played princess in her husband's arms. She blinked back the fog in her vision. No tears. Not today. The live stream shifted. The priest raised his hand to begin the vows. Nia slammed the laptop shut. Her baby startled. She rocked him gently. I'm sorry, she whispered. You weren't supposed to see this. Another child, Ava, 5, walked in holding a drawing. Look, Mama, it's Daddy and you and all of us. Nia stared at the scribbled family. All smiles, holding hands. She forced a smile. That's beautiful, baby. Her eyes drifted to the corner of the room, to the bookshelf where a thick envelope sat tucked between old books. She placed the baby down, crossed the room, and pulled it out. The envelope. Cream-colored. Unmarked. Inside, copies of every business license, every joint filing, and one particular legal form titled Prenuptial. Amendment not filed. She'd found it 3 months ago, hidden under a false drawer in Adrian's old office desk. Her name still on it. Still marked as co-owner of Cross Holdings, LC. She traced her finger over the notary seal, then tucked the document into her handbag like it was a weapon. In the next room, the kids played with toy blocks. Nia picked up her phone. Battery, 2%. No missed calls. No texts. She plugged it in. Waited. Then she opened the Maps app, typed Castle Blackmere. Route loading. She grabbed the diaper bag, changed her shirt, slid on cracked sandals. She didn't brush her hair. She didn't need to. She looked once more at the children, her children, then stepped outside into the afternoon sun. The door clicked shut behind her. And just like that, the real guest of the wedding was on her way. The van door groaned open like an old wound. Nia stood for a moment, staring into the cluttered back seat, where cereal crumbs mingled with broken crayons and the scent of warm milk lingered in the upholstery. 4 car seats all in a row, a quiet army of proof that her life had happened, that it mattered. She buckled in Ava first, brushing her curls aside. The little girl hummed as she clutched her stuffed llama. Then Malik, who kicked off his shoes the moment he sat. Then twins Ezra and Noah, still fussing from missed naps. Last came baby Micah, drowsy, with a faint line of drool on his cheek. As Nia leaned to secure the latch, her fingers brushed something beneath the seat. Cardboard. Firm. Familiar. Her heart dropped. She pulled it out slowly. The cream envelope. Still here. It had slipped under Micah's seat during a grocery run 3 weeks ago, before she had the strength to face it again. She sat in the driver's seat, holding it in both hands. Prenuptial amendment, not filed signatories. Adrian T. Cross and Nia C. Cross. Date, 2 years after marriage. Witness, Aubrey Langston. Her own name stared back at her, printed in bold ink, untouched by time. She remembered the night they created it. After the birth of their second child, Adrian had poured wine, kissed her neck, and said, "I don't want you to ever feel like you're just my wife. You're my partner, my equal." It was the only time he'd ever used that word. Equal. She'd believed him. Enough to stop asking questions. Enough to let Aubrey notarize it. Enough to not notice that it was never filed. Nia folded the envelope in half, tucked it into the side of her bag, and took a breath that scraped her ribs on the way in. Her fingers trembled as she turned the key in the ignition. Meanwhile, inside, Castle Blackmere's grand dining hall, Adrian Cross raised a crystal glass and smiled with perfect teeth. The golden chandelier above reflected off every plate and every lie. "This," he said, gesturing to the lavish spread of saffron risotto, sea bass, and imported French truffles, "is what it looks like to start over with intention." Aubrey laughed beside him, clinging to his arm like a trophy. Across the table sat her parents, Martha and Jonathan Langston, well-dressed, well-connected, and exactly the kind of family Adrian wanted, aligned with his brand. Jonathan offered a nod. "Looks like a clean slate to me." Adrian tilted his head. "That's what I love about this family. No baggage, no drama." Laughter rippled through the guests. He leaned back, fingers drumming on the oak table. "The past is a story I no longer subscribe to. I'm building something new. Aubrey gets that." Back in the van, Nia gripped the wheel tighter as she merged onto the highway. The castle was 43 miles away. The kids had fallen asleep one by one, lulled by the motion and the hum of the engine. Her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. 4 small heads leaned into soft shadows. All of them had Adrian's cheekbones. She reached for the volume knob. The radio came on mid-sentence. A wedding segment on a talk show, ironically describing a bride's dramatic entrance. She walked in like she owned the moment, the host said. Nia turned it off. She didn't need commentary. She needed clarity. The prenup brushed her hip through the canvas of her bag. A document he thought he'd hidden. A detail he thought she'd never find. But she had it now. And she was on her way. The clink of a spoon against ceramic snapped. Nia, back to the present. She sat alone in a roadside diner off Highway 8. Kids asleep in the van just outside. The window still cracked open for air. The waitress had offered her pie. She hadn't touched it. Instead, her phone screen lit the dim booth, casting a pale glow over her tired face. The live stream had ended, but the clips, the reels, the reposts, were everywhere now. Hashtags already climbing. #Castle. Cross-wedding, #Aubrey said. Yes. She tapped on one, and up popped the video. Aubrey stood at the altar, tearful but glowing, her champagne gold dress shimmering like armor in the sunlight. "I never imagined my best friend's story would become my love story too," she said, her voice trembling with practiced vulnerability. "Adrian, you saw me, even when I didn't see myself. You gave me a life I never thought I deserved." Applause, gasps, and someone off camera murmuring, "She's so brave." Nia's hand tightened around her phone. Brave ? Aubrey Langston had once been in Nia's kitchen at 2 a.m., barefoot, crying over a man who ghosted her after 2 dates. Nia had handed her wine and a blanket. "You're safe here," she'd said. That same woman now stood in Nia's dress, saying Nia's words, to Nia's husband. A metal fork snapped in Nia's other hand. She hadn't even noticed she was gripping it. She turned her face away from the phone. Out the window, rain began to tap against the glass. A quiet, rhythmic warning. 3 years ago. Nia walked into the nursery with 2 mugs of tea. She stopped cold. Aubrey was in the rocking chair. Her blouse was unbuttoned. And baby Malik, barely 2 months old, was nursing at her breast. Nia stood frozen. Her arms didn't move. Her breath didn't come. Aubrey looked up, startled. "Oh my God, Nia. I'm so sorry," she whispered. "He was screaming and your milk bottles were still heating. I've been lactating since the miscarriage and I thought I could help." Nia set the mugs down. "You thought you could help?" "He was so hungry," Aubrey said, eyes glassy. "And I just wanted to take something off your plate." Nia didn't speak for the rest of the night. Later, when she brought it up to Adrian, his face twisted in disbelief. "You're really accusing her of something twisted because she fed our kid while you were tired?" "I'm not accusing her, you are," he snapped. "She's grieving, Nia. And you're punishing her for showing love." "She didn't ask me. She didn't have to. You said she was like family." Nia remembered standing there, stunned, silent as Adrian walked out of the room. Her own thoughts turned against her. Her instincts dismissed as paranoia. It was the first time she felt like a stranger in her own home. It wouldn't be the last. Now, years later, sitting in that diner, with her stomach turning, Nia saw it all for what it was. The subtle exclusion from meetings, the way Aubrey always arrived before Adrian, the nights he said he was working late, and texted her from a hotel with the same wallpaper that showed up in Aubrey's travel photos. It hadn't been sudden. It had been a slow, methodical replacement. And she had let it happen. Because Adrian made her doubt herself so completely, she stopped asking questions. But now the questions were loud, and the answers were sitting in a castle. She stood, dropped a few bills on the table, slipped the phone back into her coat pocket. Outside, the van sat like a quiet witness. The castle was less than 20 miles away. And for the first time in years, Nia wasn't questioning what she saw. She was going to make sure everyone else saw it too. The sound of crystal clinking filled the great hall like distant wind chimes echoing through marble. Inside Castle Blackmere, the banquet was in full swing. Guests had moved from the ceremony to the reception hall, a cavernous room of vaulted ceilings and candlelit opulence. Gold leaf danced along the frescoes overhead. Long tables overflowed with imported wine, filet mignon, and chocolate soufflés, dusted with edible gold. In the center, a towering ice sculpture of 2 swans fused at the beak stood melting, as if time had begun to reclaim it. At the head table, Adrian Cross rose with a practiced grin. His champagne flute sparkled under the chandelier. Next to him, Aubrey rested her head lightly on his shoulder, glowing, victorious. He lifted his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. "To shedding the skin of who we were, and stepping boldly into who we choose to be." Applause thundered. Waiters leaned in to refill glasses. A string quartet struck up something romantic. And then the doors opened. Not gently. Not quietly. Not the way a castle's polished ceremony intends. The heavy wooden double doors at the rear of the hall groaned open like the gates of judgment. Slow, creaking, ancient. At first, no one turned. Not until the wind followed. A cold highland gust swept through the entryway, extinguishing a few candles and sending napkins fluttering from laps. Then came the gasps. From the back of the room, a woman stepped forward. Her heels clicked softly on the stone floor, but the silence around her made them echo like gunshots. Nia Cross. Wearing a modest black dress, wrinkled from travel, clinging to her in the wrong places. No makeup, no earrings. Her hair pulled back hastily. In her arms, a sleeping baby. Behind her, 3 children in mismatched clothes, clinging to the hem of her dress, blinking at the lights, at the strangers, at the castle. The music halted. Aubrey's body stiffened. Adrian's eyes locked on her, unblinking, like he was watching a ghost materialize in high definition. Nia didn't stop walking. She didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't make a scene. She just walked. Down the aisle between banquet tables, past socialites and influencers who whispered her name without knowing how they remembered it, past his lawyer, past Aubrey's mother, past everything gilded and curated, and pretending to be new. Adrian's champagne flute slipped from his hand and shattered against the polished floor. Still, no one spoke. The only sound was the cry of the baby waking up, a sharp, sudden wail, like an alarm. Nia finally stopped when she reached the foot of the head table. She shifted Micah to her other hip. Then she looked Adrian dead in the eyes. And said nothing. It was Adrian who spoke first, voice brittle. Nia, this isn't the place. She tilted her head. You sure? It's your castle, your fairy tale. Why not let everyone see the full cast? His jaw clenched. Aubrey, now visibly shaking, reached for Adrian's sleeve. What is this? She whispered. Who are they? Nia raised her free hand and motioned behind her. The three children, Ava, Malik, and the twins, stepped forward holding each other's hands like a tiny unit trained for war. Adrian, Nia said, calm but piercing. Do you want to tell your guests? Or should I? He said nothing. She turned to the crowd. These are his children, all four. Born during the years he told the world he was too busy for fatherhood, too focused on rebuilding. A slow murmur rippled through the room. One of the children, Ava, reached into Nia's bag and handed her something. The envelope. Nia opened it, pulled out the sealed legal document. Here's the kicker, she said. The prenup Adrian had me sign after baby number 2? Never filed. Witnessed by Aubrey herself. Isn't that right, honey? She held it up like a verdict. Aubrey's face lost all color. Adrian moved to speak. But a guest 2 tables back raised a phone. Click. The flash lit the room like lightning. Then more flashes, then more. Cameras came up, videos rolled. The internet was already swallowing this moment. You wanted a new beginning? Nia asked softly. This is the ending you deserve. She turned to leave. But not before placing the prenup in front of Adrian. Right on the linen. Right beside his gold-plated name card. She picked up Micah. Held out her hand. Ava took it. The other 3 followed. And as she walked back through the hall, children trailing like shadows, the crowd parted for her, silently, reverently. The way people do when death or truth enters the room uninvited. She didn't look back. But Adrian did. And his world, once engineered to perfection, was fracturing on live stream. Adrian moved fast, one hand gripping Nia's arm with the force of a man who couldn't afford witnesses. Nia, not here, he hissed, low and urgent. Let's talk outside, please. His palm tightened just enough to let her know this was still about control. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't budge. Instead, she turned slightly, angled her body so the baby on her hip faced away from him, and with her free hand, she reached into her canvas bag. 4 thick manila envelopes emerged. Unmarked, untouched, unmistakable. She dropped them on the banquet table one by one with deliberate care, like cards in a poker game where everyone finally realized they were bluffing. Thump, 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 thump. The sound echoed in the silence. For Ava, for Malik, for Ezra and Noah, she said clearly, lifting her voice just enough so the room could hear. Each name was a stone. Each envelope a tombstone on the grave of Adrian's. Charade. He glanced at them, then at her, then at the crowd. His jaw tightened. What is this? You know what it is, she replied, ice in her tone. Aubrey, now visibly unraveling, stood up. Wait. Paternity tests? What the hell is she saying? Nia didn't turn toward her. Her gaze stayed locked on Adrian. You never denied them. In private. Not once, so go ahead. Deny them now. In front of your new bride. In front of her family. In front of your brand sponsors. Say it. Gasps rippled like aftershocks through the room. One of the guests began quietly filming. Another already was. Adrian stepped forward, lowering his voice again. This isn't the time. Naya took out her phone. Quietly. Calmly. She tapped. Go. Live. Her screen lit red. The small circle appeared in the corner. You are now live. Tell them, she said to him. Tell the world they're not yours. Look into the lens and say it. Adrian froze. Aubrey was sobbing now, mascara trailing down her face. Is this true? Adrian, tell me it's not true. Please. He didn't answer. He couldn't. His silence was louder than any confession. The ballroom, once glowing with candlelight and luxury, now flickered under a different spotlight. Accountability. Nia held up the camera. Say it, or I will. Adrian took a breath. His PR instincts kicked in, the kind that had helped him dodge scandals before. But this wasn't boardroom spin. This wasn't a press statement. This was 4 human beings. 4 sleeping faces in the van. 4 pieces of him that Aubrey never knew existed. And a wife he never legally divorced. This is all very complicated, he began, voice even, eyes darting. We've been separated, but not divorced, Nia interrupted. Still married, still legally bound, still filing joint returns. A reporter in the back of the room whispered, Jesus. One of the Langstons stood up. Aubrey's father. Is this some kind of extortion play? Nia's head turned sharply. No. This is restitution. She placed her phone on the table, angled perfectly toward Adrian. Keep going, you were mid-toast. He looked at her. Desperation flickering behind his teeth-gritted smile. I will destroy you, he whispered under his breath. So quiet only she could hear. She smiled back. You already tried. And then, calmly, she reached into her pocket. Again. Out came a smaller envelope, this one marked with a lawyer's insignia. She placed it beside the others. This one's not a DNA test. It's a letter of intent. You've been served. Aubrey collapsed into her chair. Someone offered her water. No one noticed. Nia shut off the live stream after exactly 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Just long enough to go viral. Just long enough to end him. A voice crackled over the castle's intercom. A staff member, confused. There's a news van pulling up outside. Should we stop them? Adrian looked like a man waking up in a nightmare with no doors. Nia simply bent down, kissed baby Micah's head and turned to walk away. Again. But this time she didn't leave empty handed. She left with everything he was trying to bury. 1 week earlier. Midnight. An empty parking lot behind a shuttered church on the east edge of the city. A black SUV idled with its lights off. Inside, fog crept along the windows, broken only by the glow of a laptop screen. Rain tapped gently on the windshield, not enough to drown out secrets, just enough to blur them. Nia sat in the passenger seat, her hoodie drawn low, her eyes scanning the folder in her lap with trembling fingers. Birth certificates, financial transfers, surveillance photos. Each page cut like glass. Across from her, Derek Mars, ex-cop turned private investigator, lit a cigarette he wouldn't smoke. He watched her read, the way a medic watches a soldier pull shrapnel from their own leg. I told you not to look at these alone, he said. I'm not alone, Nia replied, but her voice lacked conviction. She turned a page. Aubrey and Adrian, arm in arm, walking into a condo in Venice Beach. Date stamped during the same weekend Adrian had claimed he was on a solo meditation retreat. Another photo. Adrian holding a champagne bottle at a private poker event, hosted at the same luxury penthouse Nia once helped him pick out for business guests. Another. A woman, bruised. Redacted name. Police report. Domestic abuse. 2017. Nia's fingers froze. What's this? Derek exhaled slowly. That was buried. Quiet settlement. No charges stuck. He paid for silence. Who is she? Doesn't matter. She's scared. Still signs a non-disclosure every year like clockwork. He keeps her quiet just like he tried to do with you. Nia stared ahead into the rain-slicked dark. He said I was crazy, she murmured. Every time I questioned him, every time I saw something that didn't fit, he made me feel like I was the one unraveling. Derek nodded. That's the script. Gaslight, isolate, discredit. You're not the first. But if you move now, you could be the last. She looked back at the folder. Nestled near the back, 4 neatly stapled paternity reports, sealed and notarized. She hadn't opened them yet. She didn't need to. She knew. But the world didn't believe mothers. Only proof. Derek leaned closer. He's buying silence again. That's what this wedding is. Not just about love, it's his reset button. New bride, new family, new image, no baggage. Nia clenched her jaw. He doesn't get to erase me. Or them. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a second folder. Thinner. Sleeker. Derek raised an eyebrow. She handed it to him. Inside, names, resumes, photos. One of the caterers is a freelance journalist, former investigative reporter. I slipped her a copy of the prenup and some photos. She'll be working the cake station. If I give her the nod, she'll go live. Derek chuckled, impressed. You're not playing checkers, huh? No, Nia said. I'm done playing anything. He turned serious again. You sure you want to do this there? In front of everyone? She nodded. That castle? That's where he started pretending. I never existed, so I'll remind him. In front of the people he pretends do matter. He studied her face, not just tired, but transformed. No longer just a woman scorned, a woman sharpened. You're not what I expected, he said. I used to be, she replied. That's the problem. She tucked the documents into her bag, zipped it shut, and stepped out into the misty, dark back in the present. The castle ballroom buzzed like a hive just disturbed. Somewhere in the crowd. A young woman in a chef's uniform slipped out the back door, phone in hand, already uploading. And up on the balcony above the banquet hall, Derek Mars leaned casually against a stone column, sipping a glass of wine he hadn't paid for. He watched Adrian from afar. And smiled. Showtime. Aubrey screamed, flung her veil across the ballroom, and stormed out through a side door. Sobbing, humiliated, mascara streaking down her cheeks like ink on parchment. Guests erupted into chaotic whispers. Cell phones buzzed. The air felt charged, electric, like a storm was about to hit. In the middle of it all, Adrian stood frozen, breath shallow, surrounded by the life he built and the lies now unraveling like frayed rope. Nia, he muttered, reaching for her arm. We need to talk, alone, please. She didn't flinch. Talk where? On camera again? His voice lowered. You've made your point. Let's go downstairs. Now. She studied his face. Behind the calm facade, she saw what he was really offering. A final attempt to control the narrative. But she nodded. Fine. They descended a private stone staircase off the back corridor. As the sounds of chaos faded behind them, the walls grew colder, damp, older. Adrian walked ahead, tense and silent. She knew where they were going. She remembered it. The East Wing cellar. 2 years ago, during renovations, she'd stumbled into an unfinished corridor behind the wine room. Adrian had told her it was for security. She didn't question it back then. He kissed her temple and changed the subject. Tonight, she was done, letting him redirect. At the end of the hall, he unlocked a steel door. It hissed open like something in a lab. Inside, a small room lined with monitors. Dark walls, no windows, surveillance feeds, some live, some archived. A flickering red recording light blinked from one corner. Nia stepped inside slowly, eyes scanning. One monitor showed a feed from the ballroom. Others showed angles from the guest suites, the foyer, the children's play area. She froze at that one. Why was there a camera in the play area? She turned to him. Still watching everyone, huh? Adrian rubbed his temple. It's not like that. It's for security. Spare me, she said. You never installed cameras when I lived here, only after I left. He stepped closer. What do you want from me, Nia? You've embarrassed me. You've wrecked this night. She spun to face him. I want them to see you. Not the brand, not the billionaire. The man who tried to erase his children, gaslight his wife, and build a fortress on top of a lie. She reached into her coat and pulled out a USB, plugged it into the system. The screen flickered. Adrian's eyes widened. What are you doing? Just pressing play. The footage began to roll. Archive file, July 14th. Private study. Castle Blackmere on screen. Adrian sat with his lawyer. She's unraveling, he said in the recording. Emotionally unstable. I have enough footage to prove she's unfit. If I get her to snap in front of the kids, we'll have custody by Christmas. Nia stood motionless. On screen, comma. Adrian laughed. Hell, I might even let Aubrey adopt them. We need a cleaner look if I'm running for board seats next year. In the room, Adrian lunged toward the console. Turn that off. But Nia was already holding up her phone. Live again. You're not shutting this down, she said. Not this time. Adrian froze, halfway between fury and fear. You knew I'd never fight you, she continued, voice steady. That. I'd fold if it meant peace for the kids, so you made me look crazy. You twisted every fear I had into a weapon, she pointed to the screen. But this is who you are. A new voice echoed from behind them. I think we've seen enough. They turned. Derek Mars, in the doorway, holding a small camcorder. And behind him, two officers in plain clothes. Adrian's eyes darted between them. This is private property. Not anymore, Derek said. This system recorded children without consent. That's federal. And that footage, that's conspiracy to commit custodial interference. The officers stepped forward. Mr. Cross, we're going to need you to come with us. Adrian's breath caught in his throat. You think I'm going down because my wife had a bad day? Nia stared at him. No, you're going down because I finally stood up. He turned to her one last time, eyes full of the rage of a man who'd always gotten away with it. You don't win, Nia. You never win. She looked around the surveillance room, the cables, the blinking lights, the paranoia he called. Control. I already did. Upstairs, smoke alarms began to whine. Not fire, but burnt soufflés. Forgotten in the kitchen as panic spread. Guests were leaving. Cameras were rolling. Headlines were already forming. Castle wedding ends in scandal. Ex-wife exposes billionaire in viral livestream custody trap. Plot uncovered in luxury ceremony gone wrong. And in the center of it all, the castle. Not burning. But crumbling. The courthouse was cold. Not from the air, but from the silence that hung in its marble corridors like judgment itself. Weeks had passed since the castle wedding imploded on livestream. In that time, headlines had exploded. News anchors dissected every second of the viral footage. Tabloids ran with conflicting narratives. Social media debated whether Adrian Cross was a fraud or a fallen icon. But in courtroom 3B, the drama was real. Adrian sat cuffed. No tuxedo, no curated smile. Just a gray suit, slightly wrinkled, and a stare fixed somewhere far beyond the judge's bench, as if looking for a version of his life that hadn't shattered. The charges read like a rap sheet built on ego. Fraud. Bigamy. Wire transfers to shell accounts, unauthorized surveillance, tax evasion, custodial coercion. And now, under oath, Aubrey Langston sat on the witness stand, pale, composed, and no longer clinging to a fantasy. I believed him, she said, voice trembling. He told me they were separated, that she was emotionally unstable, that the kids were being kept from him. He said he just wanted to start over. I didn't know it was a lie until it was too late. She glanced across the room where Nia sat quietly, surrounded by 4 children dressed in black. Matching coats, tiny shoes neatly lined up, ribbons and ties arranged by loving hands. "I'm sorry," Aubrey whispered, barely audible. Nia didn't nod, didn't blink. She wasn't here for apologies. She was here for closure. The prosecutor asked Aubrey one final question. Did he ever suggest replacing the mother of his children with you? Aubrey looked down. Yes. He said if the court ruled her unfit, we could adopt them. That it would be cleaner. A gasp fluttered through the gallery. Adrian didn't flinch. He simply leaned, back stone-face. The judge called a recess. Nia gathered the children. Ava clung to her leg. Malik tugged at her sleeve. The twins whispered about snacks. Micah, now almost a year old, cooed in her arms. A court officer offered her a waiting room. She declined. Instead, she sat on a hallway bench, shoes off, legs crossed, Micah rocking in her lap as she hummed softly. She didn't check her phone, didn't scroll. She just waited, like time had finally started bending in her favor. That's when she saw him. Adrian, escorted by 2 officers, paused at the far end of the hallway. He asked for 30 seconds. Surprisingly, they gave it. Nia didn't stand when he approached. She just looked up at the man who once built kingdoms on her back. Now stripped of influence, now just a man with shackles and shadows under his eyes. You ruined me, he said, voice hollow. She looked at him like he was a stranger she'd read about in a cautionary tale. No, she said quietly. You did. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Just silence. Behind her, Ava stood beside the stroller, watching the exchange. Nia turned to her daughter. Come here, baby. The little girl walked over and rested her head against her mother's arm. Adrian's eyes glistened, but not from love, from the realization that this was irreversible. I didn't mean to lose them, he whispered. You didn't lose them, Nia said, her voice a blade wrapped in velvet. You never chose them. The guards moved in. Time was up. Adrian turned without another word, shackles clinking like punctuation as he disappeared down the hall. Nia exhaled. Not relief, not victory. Just release. Back inside. The courtroom buzzed again as proceedings resumed. But Nia didn't return to the bench. She walked past the courtroom doors, children in tow, out into the crisp air, where cameras flashed, microphones hovered, and the world waited for a statement. She said nothing. Instead, she held Micah closer, placed a soft kiss on his cheek, and whispered, We're almost done. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. The courthouse loomed behind her like a relic from another life. Nia sat on a sun-warmed bench, her back straight, her shoes off, bare toes pressing into the soft grass beneath. The sound of children's laughter floated through the air behind her. High, bright, alive. Ava was chasing Malik across the playground, both squealing with joy. The twins were in a tug-of-war over a juice box. Micah sat quietly in his stroller, eyes fluttering as sleep tugged at him. For once, the weight was gone. Not from her arms, but from her spirit. Nia opened the envelope resting in her lap. Its edges were worn, the paper inside slightly creased from all the years it had hidden in drawers, glove compartments, and beneath car seats. Prenuptial amendment, not filed her name. His. The empty lines meant for signatures. She stared at it a long time. Not with anger. Not with grief. Just a soft, strange gratitude. This paper, once a trap, had become a mirror, reflecting everything she'd been forced to endure and everything she had just outlived. She folded it in half, then again. With one final breath, she tore it straight down the middle, the rip sharp, final, beautiful. The wind picked up. Half of the torn paper fluttered away, caught by the breeze. She didn't chase it. She let it go. A shadow approached. Mrs. Cross? A soft voice asked. She turned, A young social worker stood nearby, holding a clipboard, cheeks flushed from chasing children all morning. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," she said gently. "We're just finishing the custody documentation. I just need one more thing." Nia raised an eyebrow. "Your legal name," the woman said. "For the file. What name should we use moving forward?" Nia looked back down at the torn prenup in her lap, then up at her children, still laughing, still spinning in sunlight, untouched by the courtroom that nearly decided their fate. She smiled. A soft, unshakable smile. Nia Cross no longer exists. The social worker blinked. Sorry?" Nia stood. "I'll be filing the new paperwork this week," she said. "Birth certificate amendments, I've already spoken to the attorney. New last names for all of us, fresh start." She turned toward the playground. "My name is Nia Clarice Grant. It was my mother's name, and now it's mine again." The social worker nodded, gently scribbling on the form. Nia walked barefoot through the grass toward her children. Ava saw her coming and raced forward, arms outstretched. "Mama, I won," she yelled. Nia scooped her up and twirled her in a circle. "Of course you did," she whispered. "You're mine." The others joined in, circling her, clinging to her legs, giggling with innocent chaos. She crouched and pulled them, all in, wrapping them in the only thing that had never lied, never left, never broken. Her love. No diamond ring could match it. No castle could hold it. She kissed each forehead and whispered to the sky, not as a prayer but as a declaration. "We're not survivors. We're builders now." Behind her, the courthouse doors closed with a muffled click. Behind her, Adrian's legacy withered into memory. Ahead, nothing but space. Blank pages. Clean air. And so she walked forward, barefoot, children in hand, into a world that had once tried to bury her, but ended up being the place where she was finally reborn.